What's cracking, guys? Today's video is gonna be a little bit different. It's gonna be dealing with bad or maybe awkward translations. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys out there are JRPG fans, right? Hopefully you are if you like anime and you play some anime games sometimes. I'm at least assuming. Well, I'm gonna be talking about game translations of these JRPGs or other games that come from Japan that have been, well, let's just say mishandled. And it's not just about the translation here. Sometimes it's about the entire game being messed up by the translation company, the people who localize it. And the company I'm going to be talking about is Nippon Ichi Software America, or NISA. That's going to be the main one I'm talking about. I'm sure plenty of you have played a game that has this logo on it. They have done quite a bit and number of games. And while most of the time I'll say, well, their translations, they're not bad. You know, they're serviceable at best sometimes. But, you know, other times they do at least a decent job and get it across. However, after so many games, it is quite apparent that there is a clear lack of care given to some of the localization jobs that they do, and they only care about just pushing out as many games as possible, as quickly as possible. Now, I'm just going to start off by saying that I played a lot of their games like the Atelier series here. And I'm going to say flat out right now that I didn't beat this one because of the constant crashing that they had in this game because of their localization job. This was a great and hilarious game. I mean, it was done well, but the fact that it kept crashing because of game-breaking bugs, well, that's something that's quite common in, well, NSAA's localizations. Now, don't get me wrong, having bugs in games is nothing new to the industry, okay? Let's look at big popular games that have constant bugs and things wrong with them, such as PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds and Skyrim, but are still receive high amounts of praise. I can't tell you how many times PUBG has crashed on me while I was in the middle of a freaking game. Same as Skyrim. However, the difference here is that the games were actually working before, okay? And then NSAA, the team who was localizing it, messed it up. They didn't play test it enough, they didn't care enough to do it, they just got the words in there and then they're just like, okay, let's pass it. Such things were apparent in these games right here. The Witch and the 100 Knights, again, this game crashed like freaking crazy. Okay, and it's also one of the reasons why I didn't finish this game, because of the constant crashes. The later you got into the game, the more frustrating it got. And then the same with Artanelico here too. I actually did finish this game because I really enjoyed it. However, there's different playthroughs and different waifus you can get in it, and I just couldn't be bothered. Now, these games right here, I also deeply enjoyed. In fact, some of these were probably some of the best games you could get on the PS2, especially this one right here. However, this one here had a extremely game-breaking boss battle in the game's main story where if you didn't defeat her within a certain amount of turns, she would soft lock your game. You can bet your butt that the Japanese company wouldn't release a boss that would soft lock your game if you didn't defeat her in a certain amount of moves. That's a very tough boss to beat. And this one here, if you wanted to do any of the extra content, you had to pray to the Lord that they wouldn't soft lock your game. But that's just speaking from experience. There's plenty of other games out there that they've released very sloppy jobs on their games and the bugs and things like that. But I'm not going to be focusing on that so much. The thing I want to talk about the most is the sloppy translation jobs, or the liberties that they take. You guys know that they used to handle the Neptunia translations before Idea Factory and Compile Heart just took it upon themselves in the Rebirth series. Well, the main problem with them handling some of the dialogue in that was that they took extreme liberties with some of the context of what characters were saying. In the original Japanese of Neptunia here, one of the things Nep said was, "Vert is our opponent today, right?" Instead, they translated to, "Vert's boobs are going to be taken down a cup size today." Now, like, Again, this is stuff that you wouldn't really notice, but it does change, like, the characters and, like, how silly it is and how, like, non-serious you can take some things sometimes. Another example is, "Oh, snappy snap, it's way more comfy to laze about in this bod." And then, of course, after translation is, "Woo, of course this is the best form to be in," which is more accurate to what she was really saying. Basically, they were trying to inject more memes and more character into what she was saying. And it just comes off across as kind of cringy sometimes. Actually, a lot of the times it's actually pretty cringy. But probably the worst thing that they can do with some of their translations is by changing the context entirely, making characters seem different from what they're actually saying and what they're doing. Such as in the victory localization here is, "Oh, if it isn't Nepgear, ugh, and her older sister." When the real translation is, "Oh, hey Nepgear, and hi to your big sister too." Like, you can clearly see the difference here. And even continuing on is, "Tch, sorry, it's just hard to do, Miss Neptune." And then, "Oh, sorry, I can't quite get used to saying it, Neptune." Which is a little bit, I wouldn't even say a little bit, but way more polite and way more respectful than what she is saying in the right side as opposed to the left. Uni, in this instance, comes across as extremely rude, and when she's actually being very polite. And in a game where the characters made everything, like literally, the Neptunia series was based on characters. And if those characters were not likable, well then problems were going to happen, because the Neptunia series wouldn't have gotten anywhere, nowhere near as popular. However, the game that I really want to focus on is one that they've done recently and that they had to actually publicly apologize for such a terrible job on it, is Ys VIII Lacrimosa of Dana. Basically, they said, "I'm sorry we did such a terrible job of after releasing this game, mind you, to the PS4, but they were also going to be reviewing and revising the translation in the PC version, a complete re-edit of the script, voice and unvoiced, as well as corrections to items, names, description with the new editor, voice re-recording, and debugging the new build. It was so terrible that they've had to delay it, I think, a grand total of maybe 3 times now." One of the main issues people are having here is the fact that this game series used to be handled by Xseed. However, NISA said that they were going to do this game for less money, and then Falcom was like, "Okay, we'll give you guys a shot. You know, all's fair in competition here." However, they messed up the beloved series so freaking bad that fans became in a huge outrage over this. And while they publicly said themselves what was so bad about it, I will give you some examples. Here's a good one here. This is when they're meeting a character. "Okay, my name is Allison. Please, just call me Allison." It's a bit weird, isn't it? Because it's like, wait, you just said your name is Allison, so what else am I going to call you? Where in Japanese, it's a little bit different. You know, the little connotations, the different ways you can say it with, like, sounds and honorifics, I'm sorry. And then it's also things like, "Do something about this. If I am ever in need of assistance." Again, that seems very weird, isn't it? Almost as if something was Google translated at some point. And then there's this one here. "The nameless incident was resolved, but a giant ancient species was hiding in the sea, looming over all thought of escaping by ship." Again, it's very awkward sounding, isn't it? It's very dry. And the fact that ancient species here is a direct Google translation of the enemy that they had in the game. Like, they didn't even try to, like, rename it to, like, something that was more snappy and, like, just like a specific jargon name that they could have used. They just decided to go with ancient species as the enemy. Heck, even the back of the Ys VIII box here, in the French here, it's apparently saying, "I'm sorry to leave you, but I have to buy a hat. I'm going to ask these peasants who came to meet us if the way in which they have passed is bad." And that's literally the Google translation here of what this is saying. And the funny thing is, it's repeated twice. You can see it being repeated twice on here. They literally put a Google translation on the back of the box. Not only that, but they were also complaining about how they messed up the food buffs in the game, so that they don't even actually do what they say they do. And that is pretty much a huge problem if the items in the game don't say what they should be doing. However, these games are not unplayable, alright? They're still very much games that you can play and enjoy. However, they do just reduce the amount of enjoyment you get out of them. How important do you guys feel is it that a game has a good translation as opposed to a passable one? Like, how much do you value the job of a translation here? And sure, some may argue that, hey, at least we're getting the game and we can play it in our native tongue enough to understand it. And I do get that. And that's probably why I was very thankful that I was able to play so many different games on the PS2 era. However, at this point in time, having a bad translation is just, well, it's just sloppy. There's so many different companies out there able and willing to do translation job for games that it's having such a sloppy resume all over, scattered throughout their list is just, it's just unprofessional. Am I going to be saying NISA is a terrible company? Well, I'm not even gonna, don't even put words in my mouth. They at least still release games, and they are at least still trying to fix their problems here, although I'm only gonna hold my breath to see if they ever shape up, because even after all these years, they're still releasing buggy and kind of bad translations of games. So I think that it needs to be pointed out to them like, hey, look, it's about time you guys step up your game here, at least if you want to be in a competitive market. I'm just going to stress that being able to have a game that flows very smoothly and that the dialogue feels fresh, crisp, and is not just stale and falls flat really enhances the enjoyment, especially of something that is story driven, such as JRPGs. It is very important. It can mean the difference of a game becoming a classic or just something that you just enjoy on the side. But mostly the things I'm curious about are, what is your thoughts on this here? How important is a translation job to you? Do you even care? Are you watching at this point going, no, well, you know, this doesn't even seem that bad. This is like, whatever, at least the games are playable. You're able to get there, get most of the time. Even if there is like a game-breaking bug somewhere, as long as you can get around it, it's okay. I'm honestly curious about your thoughts and opinions on how much slack we should give these companies here. Whether it is okay for them to do such sloppy jobs sometimes, as long as they're pumping out tons of games, it's fine. And don't get me wrong, there's been plenty of examples of game companies that have just literally Google translated their games. Alright, you can look on Steam and just see a handful of them, alright? Just, there's tons of them there. But this is from a professional gaming company, and that's what I feel where we need to draw the line. So regardless, I hope they got the message here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was entertaining, brought some light to you, and made you think about these translation and other issues here. So maybe leave a like, maybe subscribe for some more of this quality content and thought-provoking nobleness. And I hope to see all of you beautiful sons of guns again next time.
You crazy mother.